Welcome to the Realm Kast. I am the Mortal Kombat fan, Tim, and with me as always is my co-host, our lore master, Yanni. Welcome, Yanni.
Thanks, fan Tim.
With us today, we have from the On Blast show, James Fink. Welcome, James Fink.
How you doing, guys?
Good. It's great to have you on today.
Thanks for joining.
Thank you. I'm glad to join you guys.
So, James, I mean, you have an extensive history with Mortal Kombat that I don't think a lot of people realize. You used to work for Acclaim, correct?
Yes. In the early 90s, I worked on all the home ports for Super Nintendo, Genesis, MK1 and 2.
And that's, I mean, how most fans kind of got to know Mortal Kombat, because a lot of people didn't actually play them in the arcade as much as people played it at the home console.
Yeah, I wouldn't have known about it if it wasn't for you, I guess, because I started playing at home.
So kind of give us a little background. How has Mortal Kombat affected you? How have you kind of been involved with Mortal Kombat from the beginning?
Well, I mean, I started out at Acclaim as a game counselor. So, back in the late 80s, when you were playing some cheesy game and got stuck, a lot of the companies would offer a number that you could call, like a today's version of a help desk. Mm-hmm. And, you would call and you'd be like, hey, I'm stuck on level 32. How do I get past it? And I'd have to basically walk you through it. They said they were expanding their product development division. So I said, yeah, I'll definitely want to do that. And, you go through a couple of quote unquote BS tests and stuff to make sure you know what you're doing. And they got me in, and I was working on a lot of titles. One of the titles that, or one company, should I say, was Midway Games. Acclaim was a company that was notorious for acquiring the IPs of products and turning them into games. Mm-hmm. So we had acquired the rights to all of Midway's products, all their arcade games. Where my cubicle was located was an area where when Midway would be releasing an arcade game, they would bring in the prototypes of it. And, at the time, I had just finished working on, I believe it was T2, the arcade game, and Double Dragon 3, Rosetta Stone, and a couple of wrestling games. And they put this cabinet in, and it was Mortal Kombat. It wasn't a case of, oh my God, that's Mortal Kombat, let me rush down there to check what it is. I was a Street Fighter player. I was definitely attuned to fighting games. I was also attuned to a lot of those crappy fighting games that were out there that just made you say, just to some of these developers, maybe you shouldn't be making games. That's how bad they were. So I come across this, and, in game development, you had crunch time is what they call it. Christmas's rush. If you didn't get it out by August, it wasn't getting out by September, which was basically the beginning of what's considered the Christmas season, i.e. for Mortal Kombat, Mortal Monday, September 13th. So, the game gets there, and, we got our marketing guys and our sales guys and a couple of the guys that worked in product development. They were always playing this game, and it was loud, and it was obnoxious, and it was jacked up to the max level, and it was shoved in front of my cubicle, and I was just trying to work. I didn't even care about the game at this point.
And this was Mortal Kombat 1, correct?
Yes, this was Mortal Kombat 1. This was actually the first beta of it that they put out. So, my boss had mentioned, maybe you should check it out. I said, I'm trying to get this done. He said, all right, let me go check it out. And the first character I used was Johnny Cage. And instantly I got hooked. But then it wasn't only instantly getting hooked. It was, I said to myself, I'm going to get so good at this goddamn game that nobody's going to want to come around and play near the cabinet when I'm around. So basically I was able to get work done. And I had gotten to the point where, I was beating people one-handed. I was putting in probably easily between 12 and 16 hours a day into the game. The accidental fatality was Johnny Cage for me, the forward, high punch, the simplest one to remember. And then once I had found that, it became snap. That means everybody's got to have it. So, from there it became, now I got to find everything.
Yeah.
And in that day and age, you didn't even have like Game Facts or any of those. Like, you had a couple of websites out there, and you had news groups. Those were the only ways to find any information. We had reached out to Boone and Tobias and said, hey, we're definitely going to do this game. And it was funny because I'd have a conversation with Ed Boone. He had called me up, and one thing about Ed is he likes quality.
Mhm.
And, he had seen Acclaim's track record, because let's not tell a lie, Acclaim has made some pretty lame-ass games. And it wasn't for the initial onset for the games were always good. But, the higher-ups, the people who pay the bills, would take a 2-3 year game and say, all right, well, you got to get it done in 4 months. So you would sacrifice a lot of the quality for quantity. And Boone, specifically had called me up, unhappy about his other game, High Impact, how that turned out. And, he hit me with please just make this game. I said, all right, well, hook me up with some fatalities. Nope. Not doing you nothing.
Nice.
So, from that point, me specifically, I always held that same attitude of, keeping stuff a secret. Unlike today's days, games where basically, you hit the menu and it tells you everything to do.
Yeah, there are no secrets anymore.
And there's a good reason for that, because before, whether Nintendo or Sony or Sega gives the final approval for the game to get mass produced, they got their own testers that go through the game. And when they go through it and go through that process, if something crashes, it gets kicked back. Therefore, you don't get to release it on time. So, in the arcade days, though, it's the arcade. There was no QA. You did the game. You had your testers make sure it didn't crash. You popped it out. In the event that an arcade game did crash, they would do a hard version of a patch, which is they would make the ROMs and send the ROMs out to the distributors. Distributors would give them to the operators, and they would put them in the cabinets.
So you're saying that they used to be able to sneak stuff in because the arcade version was already finished?
That's what so the arcade was finished. So that's why, if you look at a Mortal Kombat 1 arcade cabinet, you got, ROM version 1.0, 2.0, 3.0, 4.0, and 5.0.
Yeah.
Each one of those put some change in there, but that was their only way of patching. So that was all arcade distributor or arcade owner dependent, because, let's be real, some arcade owners bought the game and just said, you know what, throw it in the corner, let it make me money. So they didn't go and hit the distributor up, hey, is there any patches out? And if they weren't active with the distributors, they'd never find out. 1.0 in there for 20 years.
It's an interesting contrast to how things are nowadays, obviously, with, sometimes even weekly, but usually monthly or so patches and the like.
Oh, yeah. Now it's like, you put a game in at 9 in the morning, and by noon there's a new patch, and then by the time you download the patch, there's another patch at night.
And they always tend to be about 5 GB each.
So there ain't no 140K patches.
So while you were working on Mortal Kombat, I'm sure you developed your favorite character.
When I was still competing during MK9, everybody labeled me Baraka, and I just kind of went with it, because the only reason I picked Baraka is because he was the least picked character. And I felt like, come on, somebody got to give Baraka some love, so I picked Baraka. In MK1, Raiden is probably my favorite, followed by Cage and Kano, and the main reason that was because they all shared the same jump punch animation.
Oh, yeah.
And that jump punch animation is the only jump punch in the game that lets you do infinites in the corners.
Right. Yeah. So it was combo based that you liked them.
I loved all the characters. I ain't going to lie. I've always been biased to girl characters, because one of the things I noticed is, and I think it was intentional, that when it came to girl characters, they always programmed the girls' sweeps to be better than the guys.
Oh, yeah.
That is true, yeah.
In MK1, Sonya's glitch leg grab infinite.
Did you also go on to work on Mortal Kombat 2, or were you strictly Mortal Kombat 1 based?
I did MK1 and I did MK2.
So let me ask you, we had Tabmock99 on and we discussed this topic, but how do you personally spell Raiden?
All right. The truth to the story, I do with the original AIDEN.
Oh, I bet Acclaim's mad about that.
The reason that was done, there was a Japanese game called Raiden. Spelt it RAIDN, which was like a shooting game. And I guess it became an issue of copyright for the home version, and that was the reasoning why we changed it. I will always go with the RAIDEN.
I think we're all on the same page there, right, Phantom? Are you as well?
Well, younger me would have spelled it with a Y just because I had so much home console experience. But yeah, as I grew up, it became I.
Yeah.
So, James, a big reason we wanted to have you on the show is because you recently kind of showcased some of the work work that you were doing with Mortal Kombat Nitro. And this is a project that most fans don't actually know about. We would love to hear some more about that project. So how did Mortal Kombat Nitro come into play? It was based off of Mortal Kombat 1, is that correct?
Yes. The Super Nintendo version of the game got butchered. One of the things that had happened was, so when we originally submitted to Nintendo that, Acclaim Entertainment is submitting, we're doing Mortal Kombat, the game, they came back to us immediately and said to us, okay, we're not cool with this because, again, Nintendo's, is the kiddies game system. They're not into the blood, the gut, and the gore or insulting people. So they said, fine, you can do it, but no blood and no decapitations whatsoever. So we were like, okay, you got it. So to get the game out on time, you had to submit the game to Nintendo and they would have to give a final approval. Well, that's like a specific date. So, we wanted to get the game out because, again, Acclaim had marketed Mortal Monday, September 13th as the day it's going to go out.
And Mortal Monday was the whole campaign with the Mortal Kombat kids screaming.
Exactly. So one day late in Mortal Monday doesn't happen because of the mass production to get it out, mass produced. So, we had gone down to the wire. And one of the things that had happened was we submitted the game. I had changed Raiden's fatality to the electrocute to dust. I had changed the Sub-Zero to the freeze into the ice backhand. And these were all reused animations, basically, except for the electrocute. We didn't have time to create all new fatalities. After Raiden's and Johnny Cage's, it became rush, rush, rush. That's why Sub-Zero's is kind of lame, where he freezes you and then just gives you the backhand, which is standing in close high punch. And Johnny Cage's, and it's funny because I didn't realize it until years later when somebody had said, yeah, that Johnny Cage fatality was freaking stupid. And I go, what do you mean? That was kind of cool. He just kicks you in the stomach. Yeah. And I'm like, no, what do you mean? I said, he kicks your shit out your back, And they're like, what are you talking about? And I'm like, it didn't click in. So now we get the game finished with everything we want and we're golden. And for the record, it didn't play the way it does in the final version. The stickiness that you would get in the Super Nintendo version, where it didn't do that. It played equal, if not better, than the Genesis.
Oh, really?
But what had happened was, so we submitted it to Nintendo. And again, this was one of those, we thought we had a couple of days, so we sent it in. We're all celebrating. Woo-hoo, Mortal Monday's going to happen. We did a great job. And this is FedEx, so it goes to FedEx. It gets there the next day. Nintendo in Washington is testing through it, and around 5 o'clock the next day they hit us up and they go, well, it passed quality test A, B, and C, but we got a problem. And we're going, huh? But I said, yeah, well, Johnny Cage's fatality's got to change. Kano's heart rip can't happen no more, and we need that done ASAP. Keep in mind, they tell us this a day later, and now it's down to like literally they deny us, so we go back to the ROMs, we go back to the code. And we're like, well, we got to get it out today.
Yeah.
Yesterday.
Like literally, if it don't go out today, the millions of dollars we spent on the advertising campaign was for nothing.
Oh, my gosh.
So now we're running around like a bunch of chickens without heads. And the first thing I said is, just take the fucking heart out of Kano's hand. They go, what? I said, he gives him a fucking purple nurple and he dies. I go, what choice do you have? And of course, I ran through the eye laser fatalities and this and that. And I said, this will be good. That'll be good. Don't have time. I got 5 hours to come up with 2 fatalities. So in that process of doing that, somebody pissed into the recipe and fucked up the collision boxes. And now you're racing against the clock. 5 hours became 3 hours. And we're trying to tweak it to get it back. We couldn't get it back. Not in that short amount of time. Gosh. And we literally had to say, just let it go. And it sucked for me. People always talk about how long they spent on a game. I spent 18 hours a day for 5 to 6 days a week on that game. Plus, when I wasn't doing that, I was playing in the arcade. I had gotten my girlfriend, fiance at the time, playing the game. Like, I lived, drank, breathed nothing but Mortal Kombat, and everybody was celebrating it, and they were like, "Why you got a puss on your face?" I'm like, "Because it's not the way I wanted it. It's not the way it should be."
Oh, I can imagine. Yeah.
From that day forward, Acclaim became a lame because everything they touched turned. I used to tell that to the CEO, and he used to get mad at me. I said, "What's the difference between me making one game of the best quality that makes $5 million or 5 games that each one makes $1 million, but they suck ass?" I said, "Either way, you're getting the $5 million, except the one thing you're not getting is customer satisfaction."
Exactly.
You know, and I was ostracized for it. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not going to lie. I made a shit fuck ton of money off of those stocks. You know, when I sold my stocks, I made out good. But I had gotten into this because I wanted to make games. You know, I wanted to make games.
Curious, did you have anything to do with the addition of the secret startup screen on Mortal Kombat 2? You used to be able to hold down L and R, and Shao Kahn would come out and say, "You weak, pathetic fool," before Kintaro would stomp on the Acclaim sign?
No, that was a guy, the programmer by the name of Jeff Peters from Sculpture, that came up with that whole, the menus, a lot of the menu stuff. My code, and yes, it's my code personally, is Abigail.
Oh, really? That's it.
Again, showing my nerddom. At the time when we were working on the game, if I remember correctly, Red Hot Chili Peppers, Nirvana, and U2. Those were the flavors of the month. I was listening to the band Genesis. I don't know. It was an older album, but it was something that I listened to a lot. My boss in the product development was talking a whole bunch about, you know, apparently Sega wants us to put some code to lock the blood out to keep kids from playing it. And it just so happened to be, I was listening to that album and I look at the song and it's called Abacab. I didn't know what it meant, but I looked at my Genesis pad and all those letters were there. I said, ABACABB. All right. Yeah, that works. And it just so happened to be ironic that the system was the Sega Genesis and the band was Genesis.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Perfect. Yeah. That's as good a sign as you're going to get.
I went to my boss. I'm like, "Yo, check this out. Nobody's going to figure this out." Oh my God, this is crazy. And what do they do? Like, the day the game gets released, Acclaim releases the code.
Oh my gosh. That would have been such a great additional Easter egg if nobody had known about it.
So after that, it all happened. I was very dissatisfied with the Super Nintendo version. And at the time, Street Fighter 2 just came out with Turbo. So I said, you know, to my boss, "How cool would it be if we go through Midway to get the okay, if we come out instead of Turbo Nitro?" And he goes, "What's that?" I said, "Tonight I'm going to write up the treatment." And I spent the whole night writing up all the stuff. You know, I came up with all the different fatalities, a lot of different stuff that, you know, to this day probably still ain't used totally, but bits and pieces that are used in today's games. And basically, my main concern with it was fixing the shitty gameplay.
Yeah. It was your chance to release what you originally intended.
It was my way of being able to patch an actual hard-coded cartridge without actually replacing the cartridge. And in Acclaim's world, they were like, "Well, shit, we get to double dip." Basically the same game twice with a different cover. And, you know, we had put a couple of betas together. It was basically Shang, Goro, and Reptile were playable. You could fight in the pit. You know, the way I structured the mapping system for going up the tower, like, for example, Kano and Sonya were enemies. So, you know, if you go and your first match is against, say, Liu Kang, and you beat Liu Kang with Sonya, but you kill him, you've now taken the role of a bad character, not a good character. No matter what ending you do, you know, or who you kill, because you killed Liu Kang, you've become the bad guy. Now, if you go through the whole ladder, but don't kill anybody but Kano, you'll get the good ending.
See, this is what I was interested in, because I had read about your different paths that you could choose, like the light or the dark path. And it makes so much more sense now that it was actually based off of basically the fatality at the end. Is that right?
Exactly.
Wow, that's so cool.
I love the concept as well, because mostly when you get people who focus on the gameplay, the lore kind of goes out the window. But here, you've actually blended the two together very nicely.
If you don't play by the rules of the canon, you're bad.
Yeah.
Exactly what it would down to. And then from there, you know, we we were doing a concept art to bring the original Kung Lao back as the hidden character instead of Reptile, i.e. because Reptile would be playable now. We had given everybody new costumes. We started to, should I say. Once we got, I'd say 30% into it, Midway denied us because Midway already hard at work on MK2, and they felt like, well, this is going to interfere with our sales. At the time, made no sense because I'm like, you're in the arcade, we're in the home systems, you know. But I guess they felt that like if kids were at home playing Mortal Kombat Nitro, they weren't going to go to the arcade and play Mortal Kombat 2, which we both know wouldn't be true anyway. They'll go play both.
Well, and also your Nitro version would have been so unique from Mortal Kombat 2, especially with the light and the dark paths that the character could choose. It would have, I think, it would have impacted Mortal Kombat even more in the long run if it had been created.
The version that I have that I put up videos of is bits and pieces of it. In fact, it does the light and dark on the backgrounds. The bosses aren't there, unfortunately. In the 90s, I had the only working version of it.
Wow.
I had moved around a lot, and I have stuff scattered, and I still got ROMs scattered throughout the place. I don't know what works, what don't work. I got a friend of mine that I worked with that I hit him up. He's saying, yeah, you got a bunch of ROMs there. So, you know, I got to make these trips to go to these people's houses and see if I can acquire all these ROMs. Finding the ROMs that I did get reinvigorated my love for the older consoles because I, you know, like everybody else, I got rid of all that stuff.
Yeah.
Now I went back and reacquired. And that's the part that like really pisses me off. I'm like, wait, I spent hundreds of dollars on Nintendo controllers throughout the years and eventually, you know, evolved to the Sonys and the Microsoft. And here I am going to a vintage store buying Nintendos and Super Nintendos again. You know, I had actually bought the Super Nintendo because I had talked to Tadmock and I'm like, yeah, I got these ROMs. I don't know what's on them. But I said, I don't have a Nintendo, Super Nintendo. So, of course, I went down to the place and we were talking. And then the guy at the store's like, I want you to sign my cartridge. I'm like, well, I don't do that signature thing. I'm not like a rock star, you know. So, you know, I go in there and I demo a couple of ROMs once in a while. And they're like, oh, ooh, you know. But I did come across this one ROM, which is the earliest of the Nitro. But it's so buggy. But what I'm looking to do, I got to get a ROM reader and download the ROMs and then decompile it. And I might try to finish it. And if I could finish it, I'll put it up for free.
That'd be amazing. Gosh, amazing. That's the only word for it. Jeez.
You know, guys like, oh, you can make. I don't want to make. You know what it is? Honestly, this is saying, I don't remember how it goes exactly. Something about not, you know, to not do what you want, but to live with the regret of not doing it at all.
Yeah.
Well, Mortal Kombat Nitro is like I put so much into trying to get that Super Nintendo game, which was, you know, besides my own, you know, being a stickler, it was the Ed Boon constantly saying to me, please, please, please make it the best it can be. Please, please, please. And I'm like, yeah, I got you. And for it to turn out the way it did, even though he was like, yeah, it's okay. I'm like, really?
It hurts your soul.
Yeah.
So it would be, you know, for me, that would be my you know what? 30 years later, I got it.
This is what it was. This is what you missed.
You know, and it's funny because they were talking about doing the HD versions for a while. I would have loved to been involved in that. You know, being the controversial guy that I can be, you know, I've been told by Boone, like that typical saying that a bartender tells the guy, the usual local drunk, you can drink, just not here. I'm not telling you can't drink, you just can't drink in our bar. You know, because of my outspoken attitude, we'll just say I ruffled a lot of people's feathers that wouldn't enjoy working with, because I'm such a New York dickhead, pardon my French, when it comes to quality. You know, my whole thing is that if you tell me, hey, Jimmy, I can build a airplane in a week, and I'm going, well, wait a second, Boeing says it takes them like 6 months. No, I got it in a week. And I know it's all right, you got it. And a week comes and you show me a fucking airplane with square propellers and wings backwards and some weird ass looking mutated airplane. I'm going to go, what are you, a fucking idiot? I'm not going to give you the, hey, at least you tried. No.
Right.
You know, if you say you can do something, you do it. And, you know, if you're going to do something, you always put your your best effort into it. And that's one of the problems that I noticed with a lot of the people in the game industry, which is people hear, oh, you mean you can get paid to play video games? No, you're getting paid to make video games. There's a big difference. Picking up Super Mario and putting it down if you get past level 3 verse 3.4 is a choice. Getting paid means not only do you got to go between world 1 to 8, you need to figure out 10 ways you can break it, and it becomes a lot more stressful and strenuous. And a lot of the people that come into this industry are the types of people that are like, guys that are in rock bands or something that are like, yo, dude, I just want to play some video games until we make it big. Oh, man, I can play video games and get paid? Dude, that's best. And they don't give a fuck what they're making.
Yeah.
They're waking and baking and then going to work and just, dude, this is the greatest job ever. The game counter, yo, man, you stuck in Mario? Just turn it off and play something else.
It reminds me of the 90s, how we used to talk as kids. Like, when I grow up, I'm going to be a video game tester. And nobody really realized what that meant until later on in life.
And the sad thing is, there are a lot of quality people that are gun-ho for the industry that get overlooked because, again, it's another industry of not what you know, who you know. I mean, myself, I was dating a girl whose sister was like a personal assistant to William Shatner.
Oh, wow.
William Shatner hooked her up with this dude who wanted to, quote unquote, get in her pants. So she hung out with him, who was best friends with one of the CEOs at Acclaim Entertainment. So he got her a job being the secretary for the administrative assistant for the CEO of Acclaim. So then she had approached me and she's like, oh man, you should come here and get a job. And I was like, doing what? She goes, oh, making games. I'm like, fuck yeah. Why wouldn't I want that? It's what I always wanted to do. And I'll never forget it. That year I told my dad, I said, oh, I'm going to make video games. My father said, what are you, a fucking idiot?
Oh gosh.
That first Christmas, I'll never forget it. I had bought $25,000 worth of Movado watches and little knick-knack jewelry and shit. Small little jeweler bag for everybody for Christmas that year.
Uh-huh.
And I gave everybody, and they were all, my father's like, who the fuck did you rob? I'm like, oh, no. I get paid to do what I do, Dad. Maybe there is something to this. And ever since then, he did accept. But, you get a lot of those people that are just using the game development job as a stepping stone to what they want to get to.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that overall hurts a lot of the game creations that are out there. Just like, again, I don't like to talk politics, but the infusion of social justice and this and that. I'm like, listen, just make a game that's fun. I don't care who the character dates. I don't care who the character identifies as. I don't care about any of that. If it's fun, it's fun. And one of the problems is when you start to force your personal views onto games, it's a 50-50, and now speaking on a business sense, do you think Coca-Cola gives a shit if a racist wants to drink Coca-Cola?
Right.
Do you think they're going to go, no, if you're a racist, you are not allowed to buy Coca-Cola? They're like, listen, we don't give a shit if you're a plant, mineral, human, animal. You want to buy a fucking Coca-Cola, that's money in our pocket. And that's really, at the end of the day, video games are no different than Coca-Cola. It's a product that needs to sell. I don't care who buys it, but once you start infusing one side of a conversation side more than the other, you alienate some of your audience. And then, there's people that are out there, and I understand where they come from. They're like, well, the hell with them then. Yeah, that's because you're on their side. But to the investor's looking at it going, just shut up and make games that sell. We don't care if SpongeBob is purple, green, black, or blue. Make them sell, and we don't care, I don't care if Laura Croft's got a girlfriend or a boyfriend. Make it sell, and that's really what the bottom dollar comes to is sales.
Mm-hmm.
The industry as a whole kind of hurts itself, where they do take these attitudes. But, again, there's so many people out there that legitimately have a passion for this industry. Like, look, let's keep it 100%. Mortal Kombat 11, I love the way it looks. I love the way it plays. It gives me the attention span of a 3-year-old.
Yeah.
I totally agree.
I went and I played Kombat League about a week ago for the first time since like season 1. And I went up 2 levels and I said, how do I get this time back in my life?
Exactly.
It's so not worth it.
No, it's just something that they're forcing on the players. And you're right. If you what you really need to do is just make a good game. And if you're putting in an entire mode which people feel like is a waste of their time, it's not good.
How many times you guys run through Tower of Time?
3 times.
A lot. I'm not gonna lie. I've played MK11 a lot, and I've played every season of Kombat League purely because I'm one of those guys who needs to collect pretty much everything.
What uniform did you want?
A lot of them.
Yeah. That's the only reason you did it. And that's the part of the design that makes me go, oh my God, why would you do that? Like, you're a Sub-Zero man, and you're like, listen, all I fucking want is Sub-Zero. I'm never going to touch any of the other characters in the game. But yet, I'm going through Towers of Time, and they're like, hey, you got wristbands for Katana. I want them for. I don't even use her. At least give me the microtransaction ability to say, hey, yo, I whooped your ass in the game on Kombat League. I got some Katana shit. You got any Sub-Zero shit? Let's trade.
Oh, yeah.
I feel like we don't even need like microtransactions. There are so many different ways that they could do it where you're able to just get the gear specifically that you're looking for. Now, to their credit, they finally made some changes where you get gear for the character that you're playing from specific towers. It's still randomized, but at least you have that option. But the problem is exactly what you just said. It's inherently grindy. It's just forcing you to play over and over again rather than playing for fun.
When 11 was first released and they revealed that the crypt was all going to be randomized, I said, this is going to suck because we're not going to be able to get anything that we actually want out of the crypt anymore.
And don't even get me started with the fucking 50 heads.
Yeah.
Oh, God.
I'm going, listen, I you know what? And I had messaged Boone a while back and I said, dude, really? 50 fucking heads? Are you fucking kidding me, dude? I can't sit for 50 matches. You want me to do, what is it, 27 times 50? How are you supposed to do that? You know what I did? They fixed the one glitch they had where people were glitching to get it. And then I said, all right, you know what? I set up remote play on my PS4 to my PC and set my keyboard up and put a macro on my keyboard because the part of it that something was after each match, it forces you to hit X again. Yeah. So unless you have Turbo Controller, you had no way to keep the matches going. I did that for like 3 days and I just walked away and I let it play out.
I did the exact same thing on mine.
From a designer's perspective, who the fuck wants to do that?
Yeah,
that's the thing about MK11. It feels like none of the people at NRS are actually playing it themselves. And it seems so clear.
I'm thinking about it and I'm going, 27 characters times 50. Even enabling the AI to do the whole automatically play through with the AI plays as you. That don't guarantee he always does a fatality. I've had it where Baraka just was like, and fell. I'm like, really? Mathematically, that's 1,350 matches that you got to have the AI play through to get all the heads. Mm-hmm. And that's if every match he does a fatality and wins.
How long are fatalities in MK11 again? 30 seconds or something?
5 minutes. I gotta pull out a cigarette. I gotta eat a cigarette, sit down, have a cup of tea. They go, hey, come here. Ask them, hey, do you have any wife and kids? Because they're not going to see you anymore. Let me tell you why they're not going to see you. I'm going to take this hook, I'm going to put it in your chin, I'm going to drag you around the world 3 times until your eyeballs pop out. And then when you come out, I'm going to pull your intestines out all over you. And it's like, damn.
And that's all on top of the fatal blows, which take just as long.
Yes.
Seriously.
I mean, I deal with a lot of competitive players. A lot of the competitive players don't even know the freaking story of the game.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You know, and I would say like 30 to 40% maybe. That's a pretty high percentage of guys say, "Oh, I never played the story mode." You know, so for me, because I walked away very unsatisfied from the story mode of the original, Aftermath was a breath of fresh air for me.
Oh, 100%.
Oh, yeah.
Did the Sindel lore thing still kind of got me in my feels, and it's funny because, like I said, I never used girl characters. Sindel is the only one I actually really did like.
Oh,
Well, that kind of, you can tell that divided the Mortal Kombat camp too, because now you got the current Sindel supporters who know nothing about the old lore and don't even care. And then you have the lore-based Mortal Kombat players, and they are constantly feuding with each other on Twitter and things like that.
And you would think, like, if you're gonna vibe with a character, like you want to learn their backstory.
yeah.
You know, I mean, it's common sense. It's like, again, I didn't work on MK3 or 4. I did the strategy guides for all those. Come MK2, this big ass Brian Glynn, scary looking motherfucker, come in with a helmet calling you a weak ass piece of shit. Who the fuck is this? What happened, Shane?
That's the best description for Shao Kahn I've ever heard.
And you're like, man, and then you fight him, and he does that first shoulder drop into you and knocks you all the way across the screen, and then points you down and goes, "You're just a bitch." And you're like, "Really? I'm gonna get you." And you get up in his face and you jump kick him, and it's a different type of block on a jump kick. Like normally, if you hit another character with a jump kick, it pushes them back a little bit. Shao Kahn don't even push back. Your foot just slides down his chest. It's like, fast forward to MK11, and he's like, "Yo, baby, I just want to sleep tonight, Sindel. Can you cuddle with me, Sindel?" This guy was gonna take over universes? How did he do that?
Oh my God.
See, like I'm calling this crap out constantly, but right now all I can do is laugh.
I think that's what most of our episodes are complaining about, how far Mortal Kombat has fallen.
I was ecstatic when Kotal Khan's head rolls off the plank on the boat.
Yes.
I hated this stupid, goofy ass looking. I'm sorry, not to disrespect people that are handicapped this day and age, but this fucking crippled fucking guy that was supposed to be a badass got his back snapped like a bitch. And I'm going, wait, so the Khans are bitches because apparently Sindel fucks them all up. We're just mentally fucking with them.
Well, Kotal's head rolls down that ramp, and then Shao Kahn and Sindel come strolling, holding hands, interlocked fingers.
Are they holding hands? Are they really holding hands?
I'm just kidding.
They might as well have been.
And who initiated it? Because when you get in a relationship, one has to be the one. Well, hold my hand. Shao Kahn, like, you hold my hand. I want everybody to see I have a girl. They were beating the piss out of Liu Kang and Katana. I was like, all right. He's going to do some kind of redeeming shit is what I thought, and where he was going to be like, oh, you thought I cared about you? No, he was in love with her. I'm like, really? But the Shang Tsung getting the Thanos ending was the shit. That I was like, finally. Because, and I had said this to Boone years ago. I go, listen, why is Shang bad? There's got to be a reason. You never truly got into the backstory of Shang in the game.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Shang could legitimately be like Lobo in the DC universe.
Yeah.
Maybe he had a village and Shao Kahn came and dusted everybody off, but in the process of dusting them off, allowed the two souls of his woman and kid to stay alive, but trapped. But Shao Kahn always had him. So, you could have gone with some kind of controlling factor. But, rolling back to MK1, where he was the old man, you kind of thought he was the end-all boss, because that look was based on the final bosses of all the 70s Kung Fu theater, type movie. And then to find out, well, he really isn't, and that's where the MK story gets a little twisted, because it's like, in MK1, he's an old man, but now in MK2, he got his youth back. But he's the sorcerer, so why couldn't he just do that in the first one?
Under Shao Kahn's control.
And that's what brings me to, like I said, why is he under his control? It wasn't just to get younger. He was doing his bidding, for a reason. Originally at MKX, I want to say it was Ermac's ending where he goes back to Shao Kahn's island.
Yeah.
And it's weird because it's like I always treated arcade endings as the canon because there was no story at the time. In the earlier versions, it was just arcade ending. Now with the infusion of story mode, theoretically that is the new canon because it's story. Right. Basically, you're telling me this is the story. I ain't gonna lie. I didn't play through anybody's ending but Baraka in MK11. And when somebody told me Cabal hooks up with Serena, the fucking Maltese dog, I'm going, what? It's got a dog? Like. So we're fighting to save worlds, and this motherfucker goes to Abide Away and adopts a puppy?
After he marries and has kids with the demon, who he's never met.
Mm-hmm. Well, you can't no longer look at arcade ladders for canon no more.
Yeah, I mean, right.
Jax becomes woke and prevents slavery from happening. Again, the infusion of the politics, it's just like, how about this? Jax gets mad, fucks everybody up, goes to the bar, smokes a cigar, and has a drink. Plain and simple. You don't have to get so deep with it. I know Derek had put a lot of work in the tower at a time. I'd do away with it. I just think it's a waste of space.
Consumables themselves are something that I wish we'd never seen in a fighting game. I want to play a fighting game to play it.
I don't even want to see him in a Final Fantasy anymore.
When you pick up a fighting game, you pick it up to play it, right? You want to play. If you're, for example, going through the gauntlet, you literally need consumables to make progress in that mode. How is that a fighting game? I'm not playing this game to be able to press different arrows on my analog stick,
I mean, I know this. I have every possible consumable because I ain't never used one. Even like the recipe shit. I'm going, dude, I don't want to have to go to fucking a science class or found in a game to figure out if I mix Baraka's ball hair with fucking Serena's venom and a Titan egg that I could make some magical bird. I said, tell me what I can do with it.
Right, we got Minecraft for that. We don't need that in Mortal Kombat.
I'm not going to lie. I kind of like it because for me, it's like figuring out the whole fatality thing. You know what I mean? Like it's in my eyes, it's a sort of callback to that.
See, the difference between figuring out a fatality is after it says finish him, you get an opportunity no matter what to try something. Yeah. When you add a Baraka ball hair, now you Baraka ball hair. And then you realize, I didn't even know where I got this crap.
I don't know what Baraka's consumable is in the game, but from now on, it's Baraka's bull hair to me.
But overall, I'm not going to lie. I enjoyed the story mode. I tried to get into the Combat League again. And again, it became one of those where I could take a short spurt of it, and then I got to turn it off and play Rocket League.
So, James, how did you kind of transition from, being the Mortal Kombat guy that, worked for Acclaim, ended up working for all these gaming magazines, writing how to produce moves and stuff. How did you go from that to actually being involved in the fighting game community itself?
I was working on the game MK1. Arcades finally started getting the games in, and my company would say, hey, go in there and play people. And I was blowing people's backs out, playing them one-handed. I mean, I was a dick, plain and simple. When I felt like Ivan Drago. Ivan Drago was a dick in Rocky 4.
Yeah.
Because he was a dick because it's the product they made him be. So, through that, I started to meet guys here and there. And then, you slip a fatality in with oh my God, I don't know what I did. You play stupid. And I met a couple of guys, and then we all started going to IRC. Then the war started. Who's better? Who's this? Who's that? And we all started our own websites. Mine was Fighter's Edge at the time. If you go to the Wayback server, you could still find some lingering pages of it, which is funny because Capcom stole the name and used Fighter's Edge for like some point system they used to do when you would buy games. And then it became a porn site when somebody bought the domain. So what wound up happening was we would all talk shit in the channels, and, You guys would have the channel because you got in there first thing in the morning, and you would put a bot in there, and you hated everybody, so you would make it invite only and only let the people. Then we would flood the servers, knock you guys off the server, put our bot in, and we had the bot wars. It was like the Clone Wars for Star Wars. So, finally one day they were talking a whole bunch of smack. So we drove from our arcade on Long Island to New Jersey. I guess it was kind of like the first MK tournament, and we blew their backs out. Because now what you got to remember is I'm already working on the game 6 months deep.
Yeah.
So I know everything. I taught all my guys the anti-air punches. Nobody was doing that shit yet. And we went down there and we were pulling off, 5 to 7 hit combos, infinites in the corner, and they were just like, "What the fuck? We haven't been playing it right." And then the next day, they all went into the IRC and they were like, "Yeah, we got to admit, we got our backs blown out. Westbury Nathan's is the best." And then it went to diversions out in Chicago and doing the same thing there. As time got on, we all caught back up with each other, and that was like the beginning of the scene.
Yeah.
And I'm not shitting on the game, but the scene does something to you. There's an obsessiveness that comes. This grand lie that somewhere along the line, if you get good at this game, you're going to make some money. That's a lie. You're a consumer. It's a great hobby. It cost me, the girl that I was engaged to back when I was working on, the relationship went to shit because I got so obsessed with this fucking game that I stopped living. The icing on the cake for her was her sister was getting married, and I showed up late to the wedding because I was in a fucking tournament for a video game. Oof. And she was like, "You got to be shitting me," So it's like, wow. You make stupid choices and you let life pass you by, And again, this ain't no jab at the franchise or Ed Boon, but it gets consuming. And, so after that, I kind of left the scene in like 99, and then I started to live life again. I had gotten married in 2006, roll forward to like 2010. So, she's seen some of the books I wrote. She's like, "Well, what's the story with these books?" So hold on, let me show you. And let me Google. So I go up there and I start Googling. And, I come across a website, Tom Brady talking shit about me. A couple of other guys talking shit about me. "Oh, he was never that good back in the day. I would have bodied him if I was there." I got mad. I don't know why. I said, these motherfuckers would never say this shit to my face. And then when I saw these guys talking smack, I had called up another guy that I used to go to event, that I used to play back then with. And I'm like, "Yo, they got this event in New Jersey." And I heard Nitton's, the guy's name's Nitton. I said, "I heard he's going to be there. So I'm going to go there. I'm going to fuck him up." He's like, "What?" I said, "No, I'm going to beat the piss and shit out of him." So I go to the event with my friend, and I don't know, do you know the guy's Arturo Sanchez?
I don't know.
He's a Street Fighter guy. He has a little bit of a stutter. So first this Czechoslovakian kid comes out to me and he's like, "Hey, how are you?" I said, "I'm good." Hey, I said, "You know this guy Nitton?" He goes, "Oh yeah, Nitton's a good friend of mine." I said, "Good. When you see him, tell him somebody's here to fuck him up." He goes, "What?" And he disappeared. All of a sudden, this guy Arturo comes up, and my Arturo impression is good. It's, hey, man, you're that guy James MK, right? I'm like, "Yeah." He goes, I go, "Who the fuck are you?" "Oh yeah, I ain't got no problem. I heard you want to beat up Nitton." "Why?" I said, "Just get the fuck out of here." And he leaves. So now I'm in front of the hotel where the event is, and I'm leaning on one of the columns in the front of the hotel, and I hear to the right of me somebody walking up going, "What do you mean somebody wants to come here and kick the piss and shit out of me? Who the hell would want to fight me?" And as he turns the corner, he looks me in the face and goes, "Oh fuck." And he goes, Jimmy, and he's with his wife, his 2 kids, and his brother-in-law. And his brother-in-law is one of these like 6'4" big Polish kids. And he looking at me, and I said, "You just stop looking or I'll poke your fucking eyes out." He walks away, and Nitton's like, "Listen, Jimmy, I know you can fuck me up, and you'll do it in front of my wife and kids, which is going to suck." He says, "I know I said some stupid shit to you in the past. I know I've been fucked up to you. I'm sorry." I said, "All right, buy me a drink. It's over." I said, "I can't punch a guy that just said he's sorry to me. Now that makes me a bully." I said, "I'm not that much wasn't a dick. And he's like, oh my God, this scene is not ready for you. This is going to be crazy. James MK is back. I'm going to introduce you to all these people. And he introduces me to Shock, because Shock wasn't even in the scene, because Shock is from MK3 era. So, Shock's like, who the fuck is this guy? And Nitton's like, yo, things are going to change. So we're sitting at the bar, and he's like, yeah. At the time, Tom Brady was the flavor of the month. I didn't know who Tom Brady was yet. I just knew some reason on forums he talked some shit about. So I'm sitting at the bar with Nitton, we're drinking a beer, and coming out from where the venue portion was, Tom Brady comes walking out, James MK. And I go, who the fuck are you? And Nitton's like, holy shit, you know Tom Brady? I said, apparently I do. I said, who the fuck are you? He's like, you don't remember me? I'm like, no. He goes, you taught me Mortal Kombat fatalities. He was in high school. I used to teach him fatalities. He's like, you don't remember? I said, no, I don't remember you. He's like, oh, let me buy you a beer. I was like, all right, buy me a beer. And then ever since then, I kind of, stayed to the scene. That was, during the MK9 era, which was beyond the MK1 and 2 era. MK9 is probably the second best era. So the 3D era, I liked the games for what they were at the time, but overall, like looking back at them now, Tom Brady swears by them, they were just garbage.
See, this is why one thing I always find interesting, because I'm a huge 3D era fan, and one thing that I always notice is that specifically gameplay focused, or at least majority gameplay focused players such as yourself tend to not like the 3D era as much as, well, say, the lore fans such as myself do. Because for me, the 3D era was the best era of Mortal Kombat, purely because the lore was amazing, the characters that came up, yeah, we had a lot of shitty characters, but we actually had some amazing ones too.
I mean, I would agree with you on that. The lore of the game, I loved. All the 3D era lore stuff, I loved. But the mechanics to it is what let me down, because I'll never forget it. At that time, me and Boone were on a lot better terms of talking, and he had mentioned to me about MK4. I was like, don't do it. You copied KI with the dial combos in MK3. Yeah. You got lucky, but you're on that down slope. Tekken was the flavor during MK4, Tekken 2, or Tekken 3, should I say. I said, don't do it. I said, the problem with making Mortal Kombat a 3D game is you can't play on an X and Y axis, because you're taking signature moves such as the spear. The spear is supposed to be it's designed off of a 2D playfield. You need to react one of two ways: jump over it or block it. That's your options, or duck it.
Yeah.
You wiped out all three of those with a sidestep. Yeah. So you basically made this move kind of worthless, and you redesigned it in a way where it's become in the middle of a combo type thing. Where even like now, if you look at like the way it is, how often are people getting nailed with a naked spear in MK11? Granted that the timing, you can get hit here and there, but it's not a fireball where like Street Fighter, where you can throw it to trap a guy. Like, you throw it out there, you're also sticking your face out there saying, go ahead, smack it if you get it.
Yeah, you're leaving yourself exposed.
Yeah.
But when with the 3D era, that got destroyed. Same thing with any of the other, like the ice ball. I don't have to block it. I'm just going to step to the side of it. So you took that aspect, that mechanic of the game away by putting it on a 3D plane. And not to mention how clunky it looked.
And the sidestep mechanic too, it wasn't anything that was really a polished move set. You would constantly sidestep on accident, just trying to fight.
I want to know who put this in. That's the sound when he stepped to the side.
Yeah, I was going to say, like, for me, whenever I hear the sidestep in my head, it's like as you move away.
It definitely changed the dynamic of the game. So when it went back to MK9 and went 2D again, it was an added bonus for me, because I was like, all right, it's back to its roots. And I was happy to come back to the scene. So, I come back to the scene, and as I come back to the scene, I'm not the loud, obnoxious person that that I've become. What had happened was there was two players from back in the way day. Their names were Bass and Sands. They were MK3 players. Very controversial. TYM gave him lifetime ban type stuff. And there was another show out there called the Wule Show. And they wanted to bring on these two people. So, they had asked Storms over at TYM, hey, can you promote us? They said, absolutely not. If you're putting those two guys on, we're going to boycott your show. I went, what? And then they told me this, and I got mad. I said, who the fuck is he? Who are you to tell people who they can't? That's like me turning around and saying who you guys could put as guests on your show.
Yeah.
You could suggest it, but the fact that just because you don't like them doesn't mean they don't have to like each other. Different strokes, different folks. So I got mad. I said, oh, don't worry about it. I'm going to put a show together, and I'm going to put them on there. The whole point of the show was let me squash this long-standing beef, which apparently had been going on for years while I was out of the scene. Fast forward 1 year later, and I finally got Phil and them to talk. And I said, look, you guys were fucked up to each other. The shit you did to each other back then was looked at as bad in the terms of trolling, but a minor compared to today's day and age of trolling. It was one of those, you attack me, I attack you. Eventually, just no more, you got to take it to that next level, which nobody ever did. Where this day and age, guys are swatting each other, having cops break down doors.
Yeah.
Stupid shit. So for my year anniversary, I did get all of them on, and they squashed the beef. And they got unbanned from TYM, and everything was good. I said, mission accomplished. That's all I wanted to do. So in the interim of that, now I got this show. So I'm like, well, what am I going to do with this show? I said, well, let me reach out to Kerry Hoskins and John Turk and Daniel and Carlos and try to get all of them on. And, I got all of them on, did some interviews. Sometimes I get people commenting like, this is not professional. Motherfucker, I never said I was a pro at this. I didn't go to radio DJ school. I'm not a fucking news reporter. I'm a guy from New York. I held very casual conversations with them. So from that, I started reaching out to the actors from the web series. So I had gotten, the guys who play Cyrax and Sector, and I had gotten Carrie Tagawa. Carrie Tagawa, though, woo, that man got a bigger mouth than me, which is hard. He got my record. I think we did a 9-hour show together.
Gosh.
Wow.
And we talked about everything, just life. And he was a very chill dude. We wound up meeting up in New York City, and we went out to dinner. I shit you not. I don't know about you guys. You guys eat liver?
Yeah.
Oh, God, you're both gross. So we go to this little diner on the east side, and he goes, let me get liver rare.
Oh, rare?
Yeah. Did you say rare or raw? He's like, but just a little onions on the side. I'm like, now I'm saying to myself, oh, Mr. Tagawa, you a great dude. I fucking know if I could sit right here and you scarf down a whole fucking raw liver in front of me. Like, maybe you are really practicing right now for your role as Shanks and trying to suck whatever piece of soul is left in that liver. But man, and it was like Slurpee level. He was like, I'm like, every time he would take a bite, I would have to put my drink up to my mouth the whole making a noise. So from that, I had all the guests and everything was good. And then the show took a turn again. People were starting to reach out to us, even outside. Originally, I focused on the MK community, So one of the things that I focused on is Stephanie Brownback when Stephanie was playing competitively rigged brackets at an event. And somebody has sent me video footage of them doing their local, and basically 16-bit was admitting to rigging the brackets. So I became exposing stuff. I can't let this person get away with this, and then from there it just evolved into more and more. The show took a hiatus. I went to another streaming service that was more on a business side. My numbers never recouped, and then after 2 years I got back onto Twitch. But at that point, it became more drama stuff, only drama stuff. It was basically just to be like an MK show. I never liked Injustice. I thought the game was dog shit. But, I always wanted to hold the MK roots. And then something happened, and to this day, I haven't been able to put my finger on it, where it evolved, or should I say devolved, into this Jerry Springer type show. All of a sudden, I would have random girls hitting me up. This guy tried to touch me. Guys saying this guy's cheating. The whole premise of the show was, I didn't favor anybody. So, it was like if you were a friend of mine or an enemy of mine and you did something fucked up, I was kind of obligated to call it out. And after a while, it's like, people like to label me as a monster. And it's like all the shit that I got to absorb from people, like some really fucking dark shit where, people are like, I went to this event and player A was touching me in the elevator. And like, I just want to go and punch the motherfucker in the face. I can't, obviously, because that'll get me the L. A lot of these victims will be like, well, do me a favor, don't put it out there. So I got to absorb this. And like, literally, I can't go public with it to go after them, to honor the wish of the victim. And after a while, I started to notice a pattern. There's a fucking lot of them. And it's not my job to separate who's telling the truth and who's not, because I am not, the Jerry Springer lie detector guy. I would hope that these people aren't so fucked up that they would make stuff like this up. So I try to take them at it at face value. And it's like, after years of doing this, it's like people wonder why I'm bitter to the FGC. And I'm like, because I know how you are.
Yeah.
All of these people can't be lying. Maybe some of them are. So out of 100, say 25 are lying. That's 75 that told the truth.
Yeah.
It's just telling a lot for the scene. Listen, the Wizard stuff only came out because we convinced the one kid to come out and talk about it. Again, we were sitting on it for years. In fact, me and Mike Watson called it out back in 2018. And, we got called old men that yell at clouds, just making stuff up. Now all of a sudden it's like, they were right the whole time. I like helping people. People ask me, why are you still in the scene? Oh, first reason I'm in the scene is I don't want people to make the same stupid mistake I did, where thinking somehow that, magically this is going to turn into millions of dollars for you.
Yeah.
Don't quit your day job is what I tell people. And I try to help people in that way. And then I try to be an ear to people. And when something's wrongly done to somebody, I'll either try to encourage them to have the balls to call somebody out, or I'll call them out if they tell me, yes, I'm afraid to, But if somebody says, no, I don't call it out, it's a conversation that remains between me and that person. And it got to the point that it just got overloaded. Again, now the FGC is all talking about code of conduct and all this other stuff because they came up with a code of conduct group, a Discord group that's going to come up with the rules. Well, being that I'm the guy that exposed all the fucked up shit, don't you think I should be a part of it?
Yeah, really.
They kicked me out of the Discord. And I kind of said, hey, yo, what the fuck? And PL was like, yeah, what the fuck? Oh, well, he's mean. You mean he spoke the truth? Without him, you guys have no reason for a code of conduct because you still cover for your fucked up shit. And then I'm thinking to myself, wait, guys that are in here that are making the code of conduct are also fucked up.
Right. Yeah.
It's almost like they're trying to cover for themselves. So I just went, not deal with it. We'd exposed a couple of people that were inappropriately touching people at events. And, it made the news and all that other stuff. And it's funny because the same people that'll bash us are attempting, so they say, to do what we do, except we have a success rate at it, and it's like after a while, the people that did recognize it, a lot of victims would come up to us and tell myself or my co-host Moxie or Uncle Caps stuff that happened to them. And a lot of the times they'll say, don't expose it. And I say, I come around and I talk all this, hey, I'm from fucking New York, I'll beat your ass. How much shit can you absorb? To hear all these stories and then have these people say, well, I don't want to do nothing. It might ruin my reputation in the video game community. I go, the video game community? What the hell has the video game community got to do with anything? Justice is justice for you.
Yeah.
To absorb all these stories. Like, I think I need a shrink now, to say, like, I've gotten hundreds of people telling me this person assaulted me, this girl assaulted me, this guy put a roofie in my drink. This guy sucker punched me.
This is really interesting because we recently discussed this in one of our Tarkatan Bite mini episodes about how Mr. Wizard, of course, the president of EVO, has all these allegations against him, which caused Mortal Kombat pull out. And then in return, they've completely canceled EVO now at this point.
Yes.
But you've had one-on-one experience with a lot of these victims, not just Mr. Wizard victims, but I mean, there's a lot of fighting game community scandals coming out at the moment. And you've had personal experience with this situation.
It sucks. A lot of people misread me because of my show's persona, that somehow I sit in my dungeon and I plot and try to figure out how to hurt people. Again, here's a guy who's telling you as gamers, separate your video game world and focus more on the real world. But yet you seem to think I'm stuck in the video game world, that I care about your drama, But my point is, at the end of the day, I also can't turn a blind eye to it.
Mm-hmm.
And to this day, there's people that I will see at events that I gotta look dead in the face and put on a bullshit smile like I know nothing,
right? Because
of the wishes of a said victim, And it kind of sucks, for the simple fact that, like, I want to expose them. I'm not a social justice warrior. I don't, I'm not into all that cancel culture shit. I'd rather just take a guy outside and beat the shit out of him and say, all right, come back in now. You're bloody, but wipe your face off and don't ever do it again.
Mm-hmm.
But, once you deviate that line of simplistic misdeeds, ripping a guy off, what happens if you get caught stealing? What's going to happen?
Get fined and put in jail.
Exactly. Jail. Boom. That's it. Here, all we're saying is, you got caught stealing? I'll beat your ass in the parking lot. Come back in. Don't ever fucking steal again. Don't get the cops involved, because every person makes a mistake. But there's certain mistakes when it comes to violating women or men sexually or physically. Yeah, you don't get a pass on those ones. Those ones got to be instant ban.
Mm-hmm.
But the other things, listen, we all make mistakes. This new generation, they're all like kids with Tourette's. They just blurt shit out. They just say what's on their mind and they think there's no repercussions to it. But now there is. The FGC's got to come to an understanding that, look, you could do something stupid. If, they want to put a code of conduct that's basically cancel culture, ban you forever. The whole mentality that I have is help your fellow person grow and be a better person.
Yeah.
That's it. A lot of social issues are now becoming a part of this scene, which sadly I wish it wouldn't, for the simple fact that, like I said, video games for me personally have always been an escape from reality. I mean, I've been gaming since 1975, and it's always been my one constant in my life, and I would never want that to change. But to have it where, now you're stacking rules on the new person coming into the scene, that it's just like, well, just let him be who he is. Listen, I don't like racists. I don't like, bigoted people, wife beaters, or any of that other stuff. But who am I to really police them? Why are these people not going to the police?
I actually, that's something that I kind of wanted to comment on. Now, the thing about this is that you have allegations against people where those allegations are coming up more and more because somebody has started it, and it's led to a sort of like a floodgate sort of thing. So more people are seeing that they can actually say something. They're becoming more brave, which in my opinion is good. Now, one of the biggest issues about not being able to bring it up prior to any of this stuff becoming, for lack of a better word, mainstream, is that the lack of belief in those victims, right? Which is exactly what's been happening right now in the FGC. Yeah. So we have somebody making allegations against somebody else, and then somebody else saying, oh, you know what? Actually, this happened to me too. And then lots of people suddenly coming up together.
That applies specifically in the Mr. Wizard thing. That was such a huge revelation, and it's just kind of led all these other people to stand up and say, hey, also, while we're at it, this happened to me, and this was pretty devastating. And we've had so many allegations in the past 3 or 4 weeks come out.
125.
Wow.
Gosh, that's insane.
But see, that's the thing. So while, I totally get where you're coming from with regards to video games being an escape from reality, the other aspect is that games can actually provide a sort of like a different sort of narrative inherent to those games. But then even without that, the communities themselves, we have to make sure that people are actually safe within those communities. So if people are getting, sexually harassed or anything else, there has to be a way for this to come out, and there have to actually be repercussions. Now, normally we could just say yes, so make a claim against them, to tell the police to let them get prosecuted. However, what we've seen is that this actually doesn't happen. The problem is that nothing is done about it. People are protected. People don't believe them.
So how do you keep your community safe?
Exactly.
It's funny because the new guys that are doing the new code of conduct are not the main TOs. Now, they are basically turning around and saying, well, the old TOs let us down. And to a degree, they're right. But the very same people that are making the new code of conduct are the same types of people that have violated this stuff as well. So it's almost like just a plain outright power grab. And that said, I tell everybody the same thing. When it comes to me, dig till you're blue in the face. You can find some dirt that I did. As a whole, we try to police ourselves for everything now.
So what you're kind of saying is we shouldn't be focusing on the cancel culture of things. We should also give people some room to grow from there.
Yeah,
exactly. Certain mistake, like the law. Listen, if you get caught jaywalking, you get a $50 fine. You don't go to jail for life and face the death sentence. That's for a murderer, So there needs to be a scale, which, again, these guys that are making these rules, we don't need to get that deep into this. They're trying to build some kind of government Congress. And I'm going, dude, how about this? Rule number 1, don't touch people that don't want to be touched. Rule number 2, don't be a dickhead and sexually harass any. Rule number 3, at the end of a match, shake hands, be like, good game, move on. Boom, guess what? 4 rules. I just solved the whole government problem.
The thing is, with these sort of terms that they're making up, for lack of a better word, the thing is, these things are all encompassed within the law already. The problem is that the law is not enough here. At least they're not feeling the repercussions within the law for their actual actions, and that comes down to the whole thing of you need to actually be prosecuted, and then you need to be found guilty. But the biggest issue was that people weren't actually being believed, and that's something that's changing right now. And I agree with you that we need to do things in such a way where there is growth, there is understanding. Without understanding, there is no growth. Without understanding, there is no change. Yeah, just the fact that people will argue about certain things, and one person can believe they're 100% right, and then you can talk to them and say it in such a way where they suddenly understand, oh, you know what? I get where you're coming from. I see why it came across that way. Yes, you're 100% right on that. But then there are certain things, such as the issue here with Quellar, or at least those allegations, where those people aren't being believed or weren't being believed. And now that there's people who are becoming more outspoken, people like him, they can be held against their actions, right? And he's come out himself and apologized for his actions, gave a little bit of an excuse with that apology. But the thing is, right now, what matters is that he's being held, there's the word, accountable for his actions.
Yes.
And that's what we need.
Yeah. But now here's the thing. Where does it cross the line? Is the FGC there to police people's behavior outside of the FGC?
The thing is, they do have that right. All companies, all events can have a certain blacklist if things fall within those requirements or those criteria. Now, that specific criteria can come down to whether or not they are a danger to others around them, or if they do certain things which are not accepted with the community. And that's where I guess we sort of disagree in that the terms are actually a good thing, because yes, I agree that things can be taken too far at times. However, what it comes down to in the end is you either have everything open or a lot of things closed, but at least people are safer. Now,
but see, now here's the thing. So now with that said, that's one example. Now I'll tell you an example without mentioning names. There was a well-known player in the NRS community that sucker punched another well-known member of the NRS community at an event. Got swept under the rug without no punishment. So how do you punish a guy who something happened outside the event, but you blanket over what happens inside an event? Now, speaking with examples, it's like, okay, person A hit his wife at home, over domestic bullshit, bills, food, whatever. Other player punches another player at an event because he saw. Which one is more of a detriment to the event? And why would the one at the actual event get the pass? Wouldn't you think, well, you actually got a history now of hitting people at events.
Well, at that point, it's pure hypocrisy.
Yes.
And that's the problem with this scene.
See, that's actually one huge thing, because yes, it's good to see that there is actual change within the community. However, one thing that I cannot get over is that, in my eyes, this is just because it's become public and mainstream. These changes are not taking place, from what I can see, with certain companies because they care. It's because it's what's currently being focused on. You have certain companies who, there's an article we'll link that in the description of the podcast when the episode goes live. But there's an article which says that there were people who were working at a certain company, and they had brought up the fact that there was harassment going on. Now, those claims were put forward. They said they'd have a look at them, and then later on, they said, yeah, we took care of it. But we just decided there was nothing to take care of.
Yeah.
Now, the problem here is that it's kept quiet. Because it's kept quiet, these companies don't care.
Yeah.
So I agree. It definitely comes down to a sort of, hypocrisy within the companies and just being politically correct for the sake of it rather than actually caring. When in this case, I would rather that they cared about things and actually took the appropriate actions to follow through on that.
Exactly. All that I look for is equality amongst the punishment. Don't give a player a pass because, he's a top player. He supposedly generates income. Listen, at the end of the day, I'm sorry. They don't generate nothing for the FGC. That's a myth. They make money from it for themselves. But, when you talk competitive gaming, they're sitting in the seat because they say, well, I can do what they do, and when I keep hearing people say, this guy's a professional gamer, what organization can I look up your stats? Like, if you look at baseball, you go to MLB.com. I can look up every player and their stats, how long they've been, what years they are. And it's an actual organization that's basically saying you're a pro.
Yeah.
What can I do for the FGC? Where do I look? Esportsearnings.com? That don't count. That's not an organization. That's just a stat site. There is no organization. And it irks me at times because a lot of guys get mad at me when I say, well, if you make money from it, you're a pro. I said, well, I make money I was a paperboy deliverer back in 1975. Was I a professional delivery boy? Professionalism is a vetting process, but the difference in the FGC is it's open brackets everywhere. So imagine the New York Yankees playing an 8-year-old Little League team. Who do you think is going to win?
Now, other countries, though, they have professional gaming leagues. And that's just something that America and most of the Western world seems to be lacking at the moment. And that kind of extends this too. Like, how can you police such actions like these sexual allegations and these violent actions that are happening between some of the players? How can you extend that out to these different leagues that have no real connection to each other?
Via the events, I would say. That's what I was saying earlier. If each event has a sort of criteria. Okay, say one event creates this criteria for them to follow. Now, the rest of them aren't going to go about and create their own. What they're going to do is take that one and then adjust it in their own way.
Modify it.
Exactly.
I think that goes back to James's list of things. Don't touch anybody who doesn't want to be touched. Don't punch anybody. And these base actions that should be embedded in every person.
Yeah.
You shouldn't need to write them down, but apparently in 2020, you still need to write them down.
Yeah.
You need to make them established, and as far as what you were saying about making it something, that could fall across the board, this is where, I threw the idea and they didn't like it. I said, it doesn't have to be through the TOs. Let the players form a union. That way, union is universal.
Yeah, but for some reason in America, there seems to be this whole that you're either against or for unions. From what I can see, I speak as an outsider. I don't know, but from what I can see, there's always this negative stigma, or you're totally involved and it's a great thing.
I'm in a union and I hate it. Because my union is what I call a paper union. You take my union dues, but you don't do shit for
I
it.
thought you were going to say it was because you're a professional paper boy.
In the FGC, it could work in twofold. First of all, FGC people are broke as hell. I understand that.
Yep.
$5 a month. And if you go to events, you maybe pull out another $2, $3. You would tell the TOs, $2, $3, $5, whatever, on the registration fee comes back to the union for those players. This way you build the option of medical coverage for American workers, of course, because American players, one of the biggest things is a lot of these players, they don't have anything.
Yeah.
Unless they're on their parents. But a lot of these 30-year-old guys that are gaming still, you live, breathe, and die gaming. You're not out there working a job. You're thinking you're living this golden dream. At least give them an opportunity so they can get some health care done. Or even if you take that money and you say, you know what? It's invested in a 401 for you that you could monitor as a potential retirement, that when you're done with your career as a gamer, you could take that, and if you get a job somewhere else that has a 401, you can roll it over into it. Because there's so many players in the FGC right now that'll stay here for 10 to 20 years and leave with nothing.
Yeah.
Never won $1. Yeah, I got memories. Memories don't pay my bills.
It's like you said earlier, the industry is designed to be consuming, and the games every year become more and more like that, designed to kind of consume you into it, make you spend all this time getting consumables and things like that, and with a promise of someday you might be a professional player.
Multiple microtransactions in the game, multiple types of currencies, multiple types of loot, all randomized in some way. It's all heading in that direction, and it's actually such a shame to see.
Just one day, everybody will have a full supply of Baraka ball hair. See how I hijacked you here, guys?
No. This is great. But there's one thing you said which kind of sticks out. You've said that the many players within the community are, firstly, they don't have much to go on and everything, and the community itself is. Can it really be counted as a community at this point? That just the fact that we're saying that sort of thing kind of demonstrates a lack of maturity in the actual community itself. Not in terms of people specifically, but just the community. But then also the people within the community. One thing that I've noticed so much within the FGC is that many of the players, many of the people involved, are actually extremely immature and extremely toxic. When I like to compare, say, the lore fans and then a lot of the people within the fighting game community. And yes, you get some amazing people in the fighting game community, like great people. You can tell that firstly, they know what they're talking about. They want to help other people. They come across very well. And then you have others who are just being extremely toxic. And again, comparing to the lore fans, you have the lore, let's say content creators, helping each other out, right? But then you have fighting game players shitting on each other, trying to put them down. And that's something that I feel is a negative influence on the fighting game community itself, which leads to sort of things like this. If the entire community is made up of people like that, or majority-wise at least, then it's going to turn out this way where it gets to the point where we need to have it policed more.
Yeah, again, like I said, there's no overseeing body. People say, well, what about NRS? Listen, the NBA. Who is the person that is responsible for the NBA? The commissioner of the NBA. Not Spalding. They make the basketball.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You can't ask NRS, who makes the game, to police the scene. They're not in the business of policing anything. My job is to sell fucking games. That's it. I'm sorry to say it. You got an absent community manager, who's more concerned about the Kansas City Chiefs than what goes on in the actual scene. And it's telling. There's a girl, she's a great artist. Her name's Judgment Art. Now, she does, and again, this is one of the things where I deal with. Like, people will say, oh, she's a pain in the ass. All she does is make LGBT art with Mortal Kombat characters. So what?
Yeah, exactly.
Does it physically cause you pain? Does it hurt you? But you want to know what she does do? She's out there calling out pedos.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Stuff that matters.
I'll back her up over 90% of these guys. Any of those guys that say shit like that to me, I'm like, what do you care? Like the stands, and I even hate that word. I'm a boomer. I'm an okay boomer guy. But I'm like, you guys threaten each other and the developers over characters being and not being in the game.
Yeah.
And I'm going, what's wrong with you? Like, it's not that serious. Again, it goes back to, does this cause you physical pain that Melina's not in the game, Wally? Hey, look, they broke your balls when they put her in as the fucking friendship for Katana. Clearly a jab at you. Relax.
That's the thing. Like, you have all these people. Like, okay, don't get me wrong. We spent a bit of this episode talking about our criticism of MK11 and NRS, but it's not okay to threaten them, especially for crap like this.
No, art is very subjective. I don't like the Sindel story. I think it's crap. I think they destroyed her cannon. Okay, move on.
Yeah.
I can say that sucked. That's about all I can do. Anything else after that it's just a threat at that point. Once you pass the mad, and if you continue with it, it's like, all right, now you're the bully that you claim you hate.
Exactly. And it's not okay. It's not right. And we shouldn't even have to say that it's not right. The problem is, again, with the video game community, not even just fighting game community, although it affects it, we're all online, right? And especially right now in this time, everybody's on their computers constantly. Everybody everybody's become a keyboard warrior. They think they can say things and get away with it. But that's not how these things go. And that's why I'm happy to see that certain people have to face the repercussions of their actions, you know?
Oh, yeah. Especially now, like I said, the threats over such minuscule stuff that like, oh, well, why would you make these characters like, or even like competing with each other? Well, this character's broken and that's the only reason you're good. So what? I tell every competitive person, well, you're not competitive. Oh, I like Jax and Jax should be the best. Well, guess what? He's not. Go use Jackie or go use who else is considered top tier?
Sorry,
I
on
don't
this
even know
episode,
anymore.
we do not recommend people to use Jackie.
But if you're a competitor, like if I turn around and I'm a pro soccer player or baseball player, pro soccer player, when they say, yo, if you wear these cleats, you'll shave 4 seconds off your running.
You're going to wear them.
Well, why the fuck use it? Oh, no, I don't like that brand, so I'm not using them. All right, well, then fuck you. Shame on you.
It's like back with Mortal Kombat 2. If you fight somebody and they get like Melina and they just keep spamming that teleport kick, what do you do the next round? You pick the same character and do the same thing back to them.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, my character needs buffs. No, you don't. You need to learn how to be a competitive player.
See, you mentioned one thing about community manager for NetherRealm right now, and I'm happy to hear that because I felt like I was just being too critical. But it's true. We kind of need more communication. There is a complete lack of communication right now from NetherRealm. All I've seen the community manager actually do is interact with the fighting game community, and it's clear where NetherRealm are focused on in terms of actual communication. They don't care about the general fans right now, at least in terms of their community manager, who pretty much speaks for them at this point with the community. I have seen him comment on a grand total of one post on Reddit when the team was being called out, and this was about a year ago. And since then, I have only seen interactions between them and fighting game players, and that's not what we want. We want clear communication. We get it. It's a difficult period, but you can still talk to us. Let us know what's happening.
And talk to the fan.
Exactly.
Listen, 11 million copies of this game sold. There are not 11 million competitive players.
Exactly.
It's less than 10,000 out of 11 million that are competitive players.
That's the biggest complaint we hear from Mortal Kombat fans is that their voices aren't heard.
And I'm cool. Listen, like I said, I've known Boone for 30 years. I always enjoy a good troll just like he does. But like at a certain point, you got to go, if my community manager actually did his job, my trolls would probably be received better.
Yes.
Every time I tweet something out, I wouldn't get does that mean Melina? Oh, does that mean Melina? Does that mean Melina? Like he literally can't say good morning, Twitter. Oh my God, he said good morning, Twitter. That means he's putting in Melina.
Yeah.
Melina confirmed.
It's insane, really.
And it doesn't help that Dominic says some very divisive shit too,
which are all retcons as well, and many of the lore fans are not happy about that.
And he'll be like, well, we're the artists. Okay, I understand that, but like the fans, listen, spit in your customers' faces. Eventually, they stop coming to your restaurant.
Yeah,
exactly.
And that's why companies like Acclaim that I worked for are no longer here, and that's also why companies like Midway are no longer here because they, how many Jackie Chan Stuntmaster games did you buy? Again, we could talk, how much we liked the 3D era. I'm sure you play Special Forces every 2 days?
No, Special Forces is the exception. I played that once. I'm never going back.
And it's like the in-between MK4 to MK9 era was their worst selling games.
I feel that was down to marketing, although that's a completely different topic. But I really do feel like it was heavily down to the marketing.
I mean, it's a combination. It's definitely a combination. But at the end of the day, the numbers are the numbers.
Yeah.
We can look at it and I'm not just speaking on gameplay wise. I'm just saying, that's your failure. That's what made Midway gone. You can only release so many Midway arcade classics. Like, listen, I grew up playing those games. I don't need to play fucking Berserk or Rampage 1 on a new age console for $40 when I can go download it on my phone as a 99-cent app.
That's something that Nintendo's currently struggling with too, is that same sort of thing.
And luckily for Nintendo, they're financially okay where they can absorb a hit like that, but you lost.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, Midway lost. You went broke. Jatsu did the insert coin doc. about the 90s arcade era of how booming it was. How did you go from that to gone?
Yeah.
Because you went to the home consoles. The biggest difference is the home consumer market is more unforgiving than the arcade. The arcade games, the way the arcade games worked is like you create a game, you go to the distributors, they play it and go, thumbs up. Give us 20,000 cabinets. And then those distributors do their markup and sell it to the operators who put them in the bodegas and the arcades and all that. But what hurt the industry was the home console catching up to the arcade games as far as power and technology. So now what you're putting out in the arcade translates easier to the home version. But when you get into the home version market, that's not enough because greed kicks in. That's when you do Jackie Chan Stunt Masters and Aqua Teen Hunger Force Golf and these retro classic games. I think off the top, I mean, obviously Special Forces was.
Yeah.
You want to know something? Funny story. So, like I said earlier about how I just went out and bought the Super Nintendo for the ROMs that I had. Yeah. That day is the first day I ever bought Special Forces. I was like, fuck it. You know what? It's $1.50. And I'm not gonna tell a lie. Started running around with jacks for about a minute. I go, this is fucking hideous.
Oh, it looked so amazing though before it was released. At the demos and everything before they pulled half the characters out and everything. All that.
Seriously. Like the best thing about Special Forces was Tremor and I guess Tassia.
The best thing about Special Forces was everything leading up to Special Forces being released.
Well, that was when Tobias made his exit. You know, I was told that they had reached out to him a few years back, and what was the guy's name? The producer. He was heading up the MK 123 HD, and they brought Tobias in basically and said, is this doable? And he said, fuck no. Such bad shape. It was in such bad shape. And what would it take to do it? Scrap it all.
There's still rumors that it's coming out eventually.
I have a feeling deep down, inevitably it will.
Yeah.
They put that cease and desist on the one version out there for a reason.
Yeah.
They're very protective of their IP, especially Ed and John. I don't know if you saw the Paul Nehemiah drama.
Yeah, I saw that.
I've never seen Ed pissed in my life like that. To tweet something out, and Tobias.
Yeah, I was going to say, Tobias, I've never seen him say anything in that manner.
And for those of our listeners who don't know, Paul Niedermeyer was selling copies of the original Mortal Kombat logo and insinuating that it was his design, and John Tobias did not like that at all.
And to see it, I was like, wow, you know, that's why, like I said, with myself, you know, I'm very careful with the way I say things. You know, I'm one part of the team that did their part. You know, now, did I have a lot of influence on the home version? Absolutely. Did I come up with the arcade? No. Did I ever work for Midway? No. Was there an opportunity back in the day? Yeah. I turned it down. Chicago has too many stop signs. That was actually my main reason for turning it down. I don't blame you. Plus, it got cold as hell there. You know, so you know, it was like they're like, "Yeah, hey, how's your summer? It's snowing." What? You know, but you know, that's why I'm always adamant about like when telling people, you know, I have a confession. I'm the leak that leaked out the Injustice 2 and MKX rosters.
No way.
Wow.
Whoa.
And
so much trouble.
And
Whoa.
It was so bad. Let me tell you how bad it was. The studio head, Sean Himrick, went into all the QA guys screaming at them, who the fuck is talking to James MK? How dare you? We're going to get the FBI involved. I didn't want to give everything away. But what it was the people that were leaking to me, you know, were employees or testers. And Also, I was getting secondhand information from people that they would tell, and I just compiled it together. And, eventually I came up with a solid roster of 20 whatever character. I'm like, all right, that's about what I'm going to go with. For example, they would tell me, Salazar, who eventually became Aaron Black, I put him as the guy with that Tarkatan blade. I called Kung Jin the bow guy. And I put a list together on my notes of my iPhone. And I took a screen cap of it and I put it up. And then all of a sudden, a little guy here would grab it and say, oh, this is my list. This is my list. If you're going to copy my list, don't call Kung Jin the bow guy.
Yeah.
I put a list of 20 guys down, and you took the guy that was number 2 and put him down to 18, and took number 18 and put him up to 13, and you just switched the order. I kept them alphabetical.
Yeah.
Now, people say, well, why would you leak it? I said, technically speaking, I didn't leak any. I don't work for them. I'm not under an NDA. Now, had I been under an NDA, I would have never done something like that. Of course, yeah. I was mad at certain people in the community for leaking this stuff in the first place, and I knew it was going to leak, and I kind of said to myself, you know what? A lot of people like to leak because they want to see what I knew. I knew something special.
Yeah.
So I wanted to diffuse that before they got the chance.
You kind of put together the leaks that had already come out
in
a way.
I ripped the whole Band-Aid off and said, you know what? I'm going to put them all out in one shot.
Right.
And then I think it was the Kombat Cast. I was for like 4 weeks. They would announce, today's we're going to release a new character. And I would find out who they are, and I would release it 20 minutes before they did. They're like, how does this motherfucker know everything? It was stupid. I feel bad that I did it, but again, it was more at a jab at the elitist competitive players who, get that inside information and they go into the little private chats or their Discords and talk about it.
Yeah.
I said, well, if you're going to talk about it, I'll talk about it. But, I ain't going to lie. I felt bad about it after the fact. If given a chance again, I would never do that. Yeah. At this point, I see the way the scene's evolving. And, like we were saying, it's like it's so fractured. They actually have a really good opportunity to unify a scene where the casuals, the hardcore players, the competitive players, the law-based players, the artists, they can all get along.
Yeah.
But they don't.
Right.
The artists are looked down upon from the competitive. Well, competitive players look down on everybody.
Yeah.
That's really the sad part because they don't learn to grow your brands. You need to accept everybody. Don't tell a girl who, puts her blood, sweat, and tears into making her artwork saying, oh, well, fucking Raiden and Shinnok would never be gay. Well, in my world, they are. Yeah. It's like that movie Superbad. The kid drew dicks. I don't know. I was just drawing dicks. I don't know why I did it. People draw what they want to draw. And she's a great artist. Yeah. She does a lot of work, a lot of renders and stuff, a lot of the rigging. She puts a lot of work. She's got her own thing she's working on, like a side story, but she doesn't get the shine like everybody else. She's shoved in the corner of the LGBT community.
Well, we're going to be linking her profile in the video description, so maybe she can get a little bit of credit for once.
And she definitely deserves it, and again, she's putting more of an effort at exposing some grimy ass stuff in the scene than the competitive, where you would think, a competitive player would be out there doing their part to clean up the scene. You're the one that thinks there's an opportunity to make $1 million, but yet you don't want to clean up your own messes. Here's a girl that just says, hey, I like to do my thing. And she's putting the effort in. It's very telling for the scene.
It really is, yeah. It's like we said, it's a very immature and toxic scene, and I'm extremely concerned with the fact that NetherRealm focus so heavily on it when, as you've mentioned quite accurately earlier, they don't make up the majority of the people who've bought MK. You're going to lose all your MK fans if you focus specifically on those fighting game players. The amount of people you see on just, say, our Facebook group just talking crap about how the FGC is getting so much focus and they feel like they've been left in the dust. It's the perfect way to alienate your fans.
And I blame that on esports.
Yep. Yeah.
Because esports is a farce for the FGC. How is it humanly possible that Rocket League, that only came out 5 years ago, has surpassed every fighting game in esports by money and popularity? Fighting games were before every esports game there is, but yet they're light years behind them when it comes to the actual esports branding.
A lack of proper organization, a lack of I guess, well, mature members within the community who were able to take it too far. Like, yes, there were the select few, as you've mentioned, but as we can see from the current example of the fighting game community, it is all over the place.
I mean, I work at Madison Square Garden, and I'll be there for some of these League of Legends events. Listen, the arena fucking fills up. FGC can't get 120 people down. And they're talking like they're big league. Mm-hmm. Now, when I say 120 people, I'm actually exaggerating. It's probably less. When I say that, I'm talking just specifically fans, not competitive. See, the difference is, like I said earlier, you could suck at the game, but for $50, you could play Sonic Fox.
Yeah, that's true.
Why are you able to? If Sonic is a pro, why would you as an amateur be able to play against the pro? There's no vetting process. Just because, you played Little League or pick-up soccer when you were a kid doesn't mean you get to go play your national team just because you say, well, I play.
Final Combat, I think, was a great example of that. I mean, because they had quite a few people who kind of made their way into the preliminary rounds, but as a whole, it was about these name brand fighters and not about the actual people who had worked their way up.
You have specific people who've been taken up, as you said, by brands, and that's it. It's really just about them.
Yeah, and that's really sad when you think about it. I've known Sonic Fox since he was 12. I loved you as a kid. I'm not crazy about you as an adult. I see the direction he's taken with a lot of the stuff. Again, you allowed yourself to get infused with politics, and that's your choice. But then you can't be mad at the reactions you get. Being controversial, this is coming from a guy that's told Boone to suck his dick a million times. and people are like, he's going to hate you. And I say, I joke around. But at the end of the day, if you're going to be any way, shape, or form controversial and not go with the grain of everybody else, then you are going to alienate yourself with certain groups of people.
See, this is where it's a weird sort of contrast in my eyes. Now, firstly, I'd like to say that how do I say this? I think that Sonic is one of the better examples of the fighting game community because, I mean, just in terms of even maturity, from what I've seen, really, the at least in Mortal Kombat, the fighting game community members are extremely immature, bar a few. And Sonic is one of those few in my eyes who actually can seem mature. Now, one part, again, where we might disagree is that I kind of like that he's so controversial because he's pushing certain views in people's faces which they will disagree with so vehemently that it's something which, you don't like it, you can ignore it. I don't believe he's pushing it in such a way where he's saying you've got to be this. He's just saying this exists.
This is what I am.
Yeah,
is basically what he said.
Exactly.
Which that part I agree with. The part I don't agree with is I had seen him and PL because they've had their history, and with PL, I don't know, years back during MK9, if you go to my the On Blast show YouTube site, I put a bounty on PL back years ago, like $2,000 to anybody at an MLG event that knocked them out. And at the time, VSM, all the VSM guys, so it was like CD Junior, Rio, Maxter, all the top guys were all from VSM. And I pulled them all on the side and I told them plain and simple, I'll put it out there in public. I don't give a crap. I said, you guys listen, you fucking know this. If you knock PL out, you ain't getting the $2,000. And I'm expecting one of you motherfuckers to knock him out. And they were all like, yeah, no problem. We understand. It was just for hype, to boost it up. And my luck, this kid Kerbalicious, who ain't part of VSM, I hear from the other side of the room, he got the bounty. I'm like, all right, let me go over there and see which VSM guy was. It was the only fucking guy from New York that wasn't part of VSM. I was like, I got to pay this fucking kid now. Really? It sucked. I ain't going to lie. Afterwards, PL was upset, because I ribbed him hard. I'm not going to lie. I ripped into him pretty bad. And as the years went on, we started talking. And he even said to me, like, yo, dude, I wanted to punch you in the mouth many times. I said, I understand that. But PL, genuine, he's a good dude. We talked it out and everything. So Sonic and him played, and it's that 13-0 thing that happened. And the community and Sonic basically turned that 13-0 into a negative thing. And it's, to me, the 13-0 thing has stuck to him. You might as well just call him the N-word. Because if you're calling him 13-0, you're not doing it as a friend, especially for something that happened like 5, 6, 7 years ago. Wow. And Sonic has purported that. And PL, there was a whole thing going on earlier, like this year, and Sonic had turned around and said something to me that really, throughout the years, like I said, I've always liked him, and I don't hate him, but it made me say, say, take away the political speeches and all that. And PL had said something, he had said something, and Sonic's response was, yeah, you think I want to be your friend? He put up a couple of DMs from PL, and it wasn't bad. It was like, hey, Sonic, can we talk? You know, hey, I don't want to fucking talk to you. I was like, wow, I don't like you. And that made me look at him differently.
Okay.
Yeah, that made me look at him differently, because at that point I was like, you now took the game out of it and made it personal. PL talks shit, you know, at times, definitely. But, you know, throughout the shit talking, there was supposed to always be this unifying bond that we're all bound by this game.
Yeah, exactly.
That's supposed to be the, I don't care if you're straight, gay, bi, black, blue, green, purple, you know, non-pronoun, pronoun, binary, non-binary, fucking hexadecimal, whatever you want to be. I don't care, but we're all bound by this friendship over a video game. Once that got taken out, that's why, like what you guys were saying, with the community being so fractured now, it never unified like that. It was heading in that direction, and then something like a fucking Big Bang Theory just blew all the fucking parts of the community into different orbits. And now we're all just floating around in the MK universe. The artists are hanging out in the chaos realm. The competitive players are stuck in the nether realm. There ain't no raiding to drop you between realms.
Yep, it's very true.
You know, and I was hoping Sonic was going to be that. And then I had seen Sonic make a speech basically calling 99% of the competitive community trash, thinking it was some kind of motivational speech. And then he even put out, well, now it's time for me to be the bad guy. And we grew distant, and I had messaged him like, dude, don't become the bad guy. I did that, and look how it turns out. You know, and I like to search things all the time on Twitter, you know, and I'll type like, Sonic is an asshole. And I'll come across people saying Sonic now is scumbag, an asshole, you know, all this negative stuff about him. No matter what the reasoning is, it wasn't that way beforehand.
I suppose I don't want to back him up for this sort of stuff. I'm not going to do that at all. What I am going to say, though, is we also have to remind ourselves that everybody is human, and we're going to say some stupid shit once in a while. But I do agree with you. That's not okay to do that sort of thing.
100%. And the thing with me, like, all right, for example, one thing with him that I noticed, maybe like last year or this year it was, I can't remember. He had tweeted something weird out about how he's getting into Satanism.
Okay.
And exactly. And I'm thinking he's trolling and joking, and then he starts having conversations with like the Devil Church of Satan's fucking Twitter, and I'm going, I DM him, and I'm like, dude, man, don't even fuck around with shit like that. Even if you don't believe in religion, at least stay away from the bad part of it that you don't believe in, you know. And I said, I don't know what your beliefs are, I said, but ain't nothing good could come about that. He hits me up with a Hail Satan. And at that point, I said, all right, you know what? You're being a wisehead, you know, and I just let it go. And then ever since then, I haven't spoken to him. You know, I'll throw a little more shade out there, not trying to shade him now. The sucker punch story that I was talking about, he's the person that got punched.
Oh.
And covered it, you know. So right there, it's like, you know, when that happened, I had told him this. You know, I said, Sonic, I said, at the end of the day, I don't know what the whole situation was. I said, but don't ever let somebody sucker punch you and walk and get away with it. I said to him.
Story, yes, yeah.
Yes, so you know about the birds and the bee.
I mean, okay, I must say the way that I at least heard it was handled, I respect it. Now say somebody punches you in the face, you have a few different ways to respond, right? You can either punch them back, you can talk to them, they apologize to you, as you've said earlier in your story, where the guy apologized to you. You're not going to punch him after he's apologized to you, are you? As far as I know, that's what happened here. He got an apology.
On the flip side, this was the Sum of the Time. The Sum of the Time will never get MK again. They destroyed that. That was the punch around the world. And will never give them an opportunity again because of that. The guy who ran the event had to sneak him back that night on a flight back home because he was afraid a couple of the other players might beat the hell out of him.
Okay, yeah, that's disgusting.
But yet on the flip side of it, I understand he forgave him. That's cool. But that doesn't dismiss the punishment. Listen, I get in a car drunk and I crash and fucking, God forbid, I kill somebody and the family comes out and I'm like, oh my God, I'm sorry. My life is just, no, we forgive you. The court don't forgive you. They forgave me.
There's no consequences.
I'm still, same thing with the event. Just because Sonic forgave you doesn't mean it goes away.
But at the same time, it's also, you know how say there's a crime committed against you, you can choose whether or not to press charges, right?
Yes, but now with a code of conduct, if it was in place, there wouldn't be an if and but about it. Let's just say this player gets salty at another event and punches some other unsuspecting person. Now the TO that previously had it happen at his event is liable for it as well because you ignored it.
Yeah. See, the way it sounds like it's, I mean, you said it was at the summit of time. It sounds just like Sonic just said, let's leave this in the past. Sorry, I was telling that joke this whole time. I'm sorry. And then I even said it badly. Phantom's just like, oh my God. But yeah, no, seriously, I get what you're saying. And I suppose that, yes, if you have sort like specific terms which you need to follow, a code of conduct, this sort of thing can be taken care of pretty quickly. But even then, with a code of conduct, it's not that everything's always going to be handled with it. There are certain times where there will be exceptions, right? And it really depends on the situation. I guess the best way to compare that is to say court. In court, they're gonna look at the actual context of the situation and apply all these different elements to them, right?
The long story short about it is Sonic can forgive him, but it's not, like me and you punch me in the face and I say, you know what, I don't give a shit. The prosecutor in at least in America's law, will turn around and say, you know what, we're taking over the case.
They can, but they don't have to. But again, what it comes down to is it's at their discretion whether or not they actually charge him, even in America.
Yeah. But now on the flip side, it's like the TO, again, how does the TO shed that liability? God forbid it does happen at another event and you ignore it and say, well, the player forgave him. Yeah, but the player that got punched at another event, he didn't know any of this.
That's a very good point.
Oh shit, you got me playing against Muhammad Ali the Bee? I don't want to play this guy. I'm scared. And it goes back to the maturity level again. And again, one of the things that always irks me with the scene is we talk about the arcade days versus the new age. Like especially in New York. Man, old school guys be blowing up these stories about like the 80s and 90s in the arcades like it was the movie The Warriors, that there was a bunch of guys dressed up in Yankee uniforms and makeup swinging baseball bats at each other in the arcade. It was not the case. Fights did happen, but it was very few and rare in between. People came to the arcade to game. Fighting really never started until fighting games. And the greatest fight is over one thing: throws.
Oh, God, yeah.
That's it.
The 50-50.
Throws have always been the root of fights. The problem was, in the arcade days, 3 throws and you were dead.
Oh, wow. Yeah, you're right, yes.
It ain't like now where a throw is 10%. It was like, throw 30%. All of a sudden, you get thrown 3 times and you're like, danger. And the other guy's thing was, well, you could stop it. You just got to hold down, back away. Yeah, but, all the guys that I play with, we never really intended for this, to be a thing. It's like playing billiards. Every bar has their own set of rules. Well, throws in New York traditionally were bad.
That's a very good comparison because a lot of the time that you see, I at least see on Facebook, the more casual or the lore-based fans will get into it with the fighting game players, the competitive players, about zoning. Now, in the fighting game community, zoning is if you can't stop it, get good. With the casual players, it's more like, but it's like an unspoken rule. Don't ruin the game.
Don't you know any of the rules?
Pretty much, don't you know any combos or don't you know any other inputs? And I think the other comparison is to something that you mentioned earlier, where you pick characters based on tiers rather than who you like. And with the lore fans, it's sort of unspoken that you're going to play who you like rather than just somebody who's good. Yeah. And it's interesting to see this comparison. That whole billiards thing is great. That's a good way of putting it.
I told somebody one day, being a wise ass, I went, man, back in 1994, I went into the Broadway arcade, which was the biggest arcade in the city, and I was walking into the arcade, man, and I was walking past 50 people, and all 50 of the people took their knives out and they stabbed me in the back. And I had 50 holes in my back, but it didn't matter to me. I stepped up on the arcade machine. I got my 50 wins in a row, and I walked out the door. I bled and died in the middle of Times Square, man. I'm like, that's how rough it was, man. That's how old.
That's the 80s for you.
I'm not going to lie. There was maybe 1 or 2 fights back then we didn't have cell phones. We had beepers. My friend would beep me, and he would put in a payphone booth number that I could call back. And he hit me up like 2 times. He did this to me. Man, I'm surrounded by a bunch of guys in the arcade. I'm like, what'd you do? He goes, I threw them. He's like, can you get here? I'm like, in 40 minutes. I said, I don't know. Either start throwing some matches and let them think they're good until I get there, or fucking run. He did. He chose the first. By the time I got there, they were all friends.
Wow.
I've gone into a couple of bad neighborhoods and bodied guys. You can tell, like you hear behind you. I'm like, oh God, they're getting mad. So then I would pull out a fucking fatality that they never seen and tell it to them. I bought my way out of a couple of situations with fatalities. I was doing microtransactions before anybody else. Oh, he just did Reptile's fatality. I said, yeah, man, it's just forward, turn invisible, forward, down, low punch, boom, boom, or down, forward, I can't remember what it was. I said, that's it. Oh, shit, thanks, man. You're chill, boom, boom, boom. Next time I came in, oh, Jimmy, what do you got today? Fatalities was a bartering chip.
Yeah.
Again, it's like the unity of the scene needs to happen somehow.
Yes.
And I believe the root of it is the community manager. That is his job. If I hit you up with, yo, man, my fucking tremor is not working on fucking mobile fucking app. Talk to me, not at me. Don't let me message you and have you go, yeah, send an email to WB support. Well, I could have did that on my fucking own. I didn't need you to tell me that.
It's not a fighting game community manager. It's the community manager. They're supposed to embrace the entire community.
By the way, I actually think he seems like a genuinely nice guy. I'm just very disappointed in the lack of communication. And in every Kombat Cast, he'd come on, he'd say, I was talking to my good friend, Mr. Aquaman or whatever, like every time it was a different fighting game community member. And it's just like, yeah, man, you can show off about this stuff because that's honestly how it comes across. But the fans, the MK fans don't care. We want you to communicate with us and tell us more about the game. We don't give a damn about the fighting game community in comparison to the game itself.
Wait, let's get to something very important. Hold on. Today is it's 4:41. Let's do birthday shout outs. Yo, happy birthday to 01624. My ass hurts. Happy 23rd birthday. Like, dude, really? You don't give a shit about birthday wishes?
I kind of want to know your birthday so I can just put it in for the Kombat Cast next time.
Yeah, Cinco de Mayo.
So, James, before we let you go, let me ask you something. You used to, or at least in your Mortal Kombat Nitro script, you refer to all the fatalities as death moves. So I'm curious, what is your favorite death move? It could be from Nitro or any of the other games after Mortal Kombat. What's your favorite fatality?
I still like the traditional 3-head pop to Johnny Cage.
Yeah.
or the Raiden electric head pop.
Oh, yeah.
And as far as on the gore level, the maximum gore level, you know what? My favorite fatality, Kung Lao Slice MK2.
That's a great one. Yeah. With the protruding ribs and everything.
That's the first time that I think the fatalities went like a whoa level of gore. Mm-hmm. Where, like you said, you seen the ribs hanging out and you were like, damn, that's like, unlike MK3 with 650 rib cages pop out.
Is that not normal human anatomy?
13 femurs. I'm like, dolls. I'm going, damn, I blew up a whole nation.
So tell our fans and our listeners, where is it that they can find you?
We broadcast on Twitch at the On Blast Show. We have come back because of drama in the scene. So usually we're Tuesday nights at 10 o'clock. We've been alternating it. So, I mean, if you follow us on the On Blast Show on Twitter, you can get the notifications when we go live. And then on YouTube, you can see past episodes. The channel is the On Blast Show 2012.
We're going to leave links to all of this in the description of our videos so everybody can find your stuff.
Thank you to all of our listeners for stopping by. Thank you very much, James, for joining us on this episode. It was a pleasure to have you on the Realm Kast with us today.
Yeah, thank you, James, for joining us.
No problem, guys.
And special thanks to Uppercut Editions for their continued support. You can find them at Encyclopedia MK on Twitter and the Mortal Kombat Encyclopedia Project on Facebook. You can catch up on all episodes of the Realm Kast on YouTube, Facebook, iTunes, and Spotify. You can find Yanni and myself, Phantom, on the Mortal Kombat group on Facebook, as well as Yanni on the Mortal Kombat meme realm. Thanks, everyone. Have a good day.
Here at Acclaim Entertainment, Mortal Kombat, 6 different development locations around the world. This is the headquarters.
Hi, come on into the Combat Zone. This is James, Joe, and Jim, comparing and contrasting against the arcade version, confirming that everything we do is exactly like it was.